next Board of Adjustment meeting of the May 13th to order. Roll call, please.
Gina Wilson. Ricky Patel.
Yes.
Paul Greek.
Here.
Eric Inyard. Here. Sherry Keith.
I guess we have a quorum.
Yes, we do. And I would, sorry to interrupt, but I would remind everyone that in order for a Board of Adjustment case to be approved, it does require 3 affirmative votes. So you would all have to be in agreement and vote.
Right.
Okay.
Do we have time to review the minutes of the last meeting? And if so, I can entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Ricky Patel.
Yes.
Eric Inyard. Yes. Paul Greek.
Yes. Minutes are approved as written. The first order of business this evening is a consideration and possible approval denial amendment revision to recommendation of JBOA 21-437. Request by Cozart Homes for relief for the front yard line. General location is 76 East 130th Street South. Or say we should give it to staff.
Yes. Thank you very much. This is an application that was brought to us. The home received its title inspection, this as-built, and during that process, they discovered that there was an encroachment into, I will say, the easement. So I received multiple drawings at the time of the application, and they are included in the packet. And my train of thought at the time of receiving them was that the build line followed. You can see it kind of drops off and kind of goes at an angle, the utility easement. But on the plat, the 20-foot build line is a long dashed line, and the utility easement is a short dashed line. And so I apologize, I put my yellow line on top of it. But in reality, the area that comes down at an angle is the short dashed line. And I have asked for a variance for relief from the front build yard or the front build line. But the build line generally follows the curve of the right-of-way or the right-of-way period. And in this case, it's a curve. So I'm saying all that to say I spoke with Mr. Inyart a couple of times. Actually, I should say we emailed. Probably would have been better if we had talked on the phone because what I was thinking and what he was saying probably didn't line up until today. So I have asked for relief through a variance due to the encroachment of the build line. The other option for the for you all, and I think is the accurate option, is to declare that the dotted line is easement only and is not the build line, and therefore does not require a variance. And that the build line, as shown on the plat, follows the curve of the right-of-way. So that does not mean that we still don't have to have an easement closure and then ultimate vacation. That process requires technical advisory committee notice for 30 days in advance, and then it goes to city council for approval. That closes the easement, and then the vacation of the easement has to take place in district court. So I'll continue through this series of pages. If you look on page 4, it kind of goes through the general information about the project. It is part of PUD 106. The underlying zoning is RS1. It's the estates of Forest Hill, and we're specifically talking about Lot 8, Block 19. So if you look down at the bottom of page 2 or page 4 of your packet, you can see the blue lines represent the water line. The green lines over at the top and the right are where the sewer is located, and the yellow is the stormwater. Excuse me. So staff did go out and look at the site to make sure that the actual utilities would not be in danger or impaired in any way if we did vacate the easement. And they felt comfortable with removing the corner of the house from the easement. On page 5 of 20, I kind of circled lot 19, so you can see it's at the end of that cul-de-sac, and it has a dedication that pours into Reserve C. A little bit hard to see all of that. On page 6 is just the zoning map. And at the bottom of page 4 or page 6 of 20, it talks about variances. And if in fact the build line followed the easement, then clearly you would need a variance. But like I stated just earlier, I believe per Eric's enlightenment and having looked at the documents about 10 more times, I was like, you know what, I think he's right. I believe that the correct motion tonight would be to declare that the build line follows the right of way and no variance to the build line is required. Did that summarize?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So on page 8, you're going to see the little corner there where the encroachment occurs. And then we have a blown up page 9. I wish I had kind of drawn the highlighted for you guys, but you get it. You see what's happening. So this happens. It's not that uncommon. You see the plot plan for the home that was built and then the mortgage inspection. My biggest concern, and I told this to Eric, and I'm glad it is here before you this evening, I don't want a title company in the last hour not agreeing with my letter if I stated that it did not encroach the build line. So I do prefer that you all make that your opinion so that it is noted and goes into the approval letter. And with that being said, I don't have any more comments.
Any questions of the staff? Is the applicant here? Well, come up and tell us your story.
Tell you my story.
Yeah. Tell us what you want to do.
What do I want to do? What do you mean?
Just tell us your side of your.
Or what happened?
Right.
Okay, so my architect draws up the site plans for us, and they just made a mistake and just didn't catch that easement going off on a diagonal like that. And I didn't notice it, and neither did Tanner or Vince. So it just kind of passed through everybody. And I've built 400 or 500 houses and never had this happen once. So it just was an honest mistake. And it just was, the site plan was drawn up wrong in the
Right.
first place. And they just thought that curve, just like every other lot in there. So just an honest mistake.
Any questions for the applicant? If not, you can proceed it.
Thank you.
And you're here for the next case, correct? Okay, so anyone else here in favor or not in favor? Any discussion?
I do see this kind of arrangement quite often, and I agree with staff, and thank you for putting all of this together. I see that the zoning setback is 20 feet, and I agree that the proper course of action would be to declare as a board that it does not encroach the building line. And I'm encouraged to see the plan of action to go through the city council process to close the portion of the easement and vacate that in district court. These are all routine steps when this kind of thing comes up. And a lot of times, I do see this all the time. Site plans use the best information, but everybody misses things from time to time, and it's just part of the process.
Unfortunately, a lot of times we don't discover this until they go for the loan application.
So true.
Any other discussion? Do I hear a motion?
Was there specific language that you were looking for?
No, I'm fine with.
I make a motion that the board declare that the building line has not been encroached in this case.
Second.
Or say, is that the language you wanted?
Yep, that will work.
Ricky Patel,
Yes.
Eric Kinnear,
Yes.
Paul Greek.
Yes.
I believe we go, oh, I'm sorry, I just keep
Okay.
interrupting you. I'm so sorry. We'll go to city council for the closure of the easement, and I believe that is July. The first Tuesday in July,
July 1st.
is it?
July 1st.
The first. I'll put it on consent. You shouldn't need to be there.
Our second case tonight is the consideration and possible approval of denial amendment and revision of recommendation of JBOA 21-438. This is a request by Scene Rohrabacher to allow a pool side yard for relief from the minimum side and rear yard setbacks. General location is 736 West 110th Place South. Staff, give us your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Greek. This staff report starts on page 12 of your packet, and we're essentially talking about a swimming pool as an accessory use to a residence, which is allowed by right. In this particular case, the home is again on a cul-de-sac, which gives you that large pie shape. And in this case, also they have quite an extensive side yard, but their rear yard is encumbered by an easement, and it's very shallow also. So in section 240 under yards of the zoning code, it does say swimming pool shall be located in the rear yard and shall have a minimum setback of 10 feet from any side or rear lot lines. And that's, excuse me, item G. And then I have table 2 in here as well. If you look on page 14, as you know that when you're requesting a variance, you have to be able to prove certain, it says variances to upon specific cases, such variances from the terms of this article as will not be contrary to public interest where, owing to special conditions, a literal enforcement of the provision of this article will in any individual case result in unnecessary hardship, so that the spirit of this article shall be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done. And then it also lists I think there's four questions in which you need to answer or to ask yourself. There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property in question because of either its size, shape, or topography. And in this case, like I stated, it is this particular lot, we're asking due to the shape of the lot, it doesn't have a traditional rear yard depth that you would normally see. It has that pie shape, and the utility easement in the rear yard is 22.5 feet, which is larger than normal. Generally, the maximum is 17.5. The house takes up the full lot on the south and east, and as presented, the pool would be located 36.6 feet from the rear property line. But the other question that they're asking is if they can encroach that side yard. The build line is only 5 feet, but the code requires 10-foot separation. But as you can see in this photo that Brandon's presenting, their neighbor also has a similar shaped yard, and there is a larger distance than normal, even though it's not required just because of the shapes of the lots. So the pool does not encroach the side yard, which is the 5-foot build line, but the concrete laydown work does. But they're asking to get 8 foot from the property line rather than stay the 10 feet. B, the application of this article is to this particular piece of property would create an unnecessary hardship. And designing and building a pool in the rear yard as defined by the Jinx zoning code would create an unnecessary hardship due to the easement and public utilities within the easement. Such conditions, this is item C on page 15. Such conditions are peculiar to the particular piece of property involved. And in this case, I did respond, yes, the conditions are peculiar to the particular property involved and not reflective of the entire neighborhood. That's not to say that the neighbor might not come in and ask for something similar, but it still does not apply to the entire subdivision. And item D, relief, if granted, would not cause substantial detriment to the public good or impair the purposes and intent of the ordinance or the comprehensive plan. And because this is a very large side yard, staff did not feel that it impairs, that there's any substantial detriment to the public good. So when you get to the next portion, it talks about staff evaluation and recommendation, and that's just straight from the code. And then I did show the zoning map at the bottom of page 16 or 5 of 7 of the staff report. And then on page 17, you're going to see a Google Earth view of the subdivision. And then I do have a clip from the plat. It kind of shows the general area, and then we're back to the actual page that Mr. Macy showed, page 18. And then we have the notice that was given out. To date, staff did not receive any phone calls. Let me confirm with Mr. Macy. Did you receive any phone calls?
The only calls we got was the initial notice that was mailed out. The wrong general address was on there. I put 731 instead of 736, but the legal address was correct. And so a little confusion, well, less confusion and more people calling to let us know we made a mistake. But no issues.
So those were the only phone calls we had. The very last page does show you the full layout as related to the yard and the house. It does have a pool and a hot tub. I think that is everything that I was going to tell you all and share with you. Staff does recommend approval. I don't see any reason, and I spoke with the building inspections department and the city engineer, and no one had any reason to deny the request as presented.
Any questions of staff? Is the applicant present? Want to come up and tell us what your plans are?
Name
Name and
so
address.
our
Provide us
client-
your name and address, please.
Sean Rubacher, and I'm actually with Landmark. We're at 10901 East 11th Street, in Tulsa. And our client wants a swimming pool. And because of the easement in the backyard, we were looking at the side yard as an option. And after speaking with Mr. Macy on proper procedure to get that approved, we're here today to seek approval for that.
Any questions for the applicant? Let me be seated, please. I think we've seen this type of thing before. And they're
Yeah.
Pretty standard, yeah. And the side yard's bigger than the backyard.
They have a generous size side yard. I guess they can play cornhole around the back there in the easement.
Any further discussion? Do I hear a motion?
I think that the statements and findings in the staff report, to me, are persuasive that this case does meet the test and standards under the James Zoning Code and state statutes for granting variance, those being hardship, unusual circumstances, the minimum necessary, and no substantial detriment. I make motion to approve the staff recommendation.
You hear a second?
Second.
Rudy Patel,
Yes.
Eric Inyard,
Yes.
Paul Green.
Yes. You're good to go, sir. You can visit with Marseille to get anything else you need.
All right, I think your permit's probably waiting on the desk. I'll let them know tomorrow
Okay.
that your client was approved.
Do I need to resubmit the permit or?
Yeah. It's just sitting there waiting.
You're welcome. Do you have anything else for us?
Well, I'll give you a short update on the UDO. The committee will be receiving chapters 7, 6, and 7. Let me look it up real quick. I sent out an email today. It's talking about signage, and I can't remember what the other one is, so let me look up. You feel like if you read this stuff last week, you should remember it today. I literally printed it off today, but for some reason, my brain is just not. It's just development standards. So sign standards and development standards. So the UDO is taking shape. I've mentioned before, Mr. Inyard is on the committee and has been very, very helpful. So I appreciate that. Overall, the sign standards, I think, will be dramatically different. We're doing away with a lot of things that we previously have allowed. I'm probably going to recommend no pole signs unless you are within a certain distance from the Highway 75. See if we can get more monument signs and just a more tasteful signage. All the little, I call them snipe signs, all the little signs that you see for elections and lawn mowing and picking up refrigerators or whatever, those won't be allowed if it's approved. I don't get to approve it, I just make recommendation. So we'll see.
I'm sure this will probably come up, but political signs are probably still allowed in the yard.
Yes, yeah, just not in the public right of ways.
And
So
it's-
people they can put whatever sign they want at this point in their yards. I think it may even limit them to 3 or 4, I don't know, but. And really looking at the case law for signage, trying to make sure that it's not content, that it is content neutral and that we're not restricting anybody's freedom of speech through the signage. So Teresa has taken a couple of swipes at it and made some recommendations. I think there was 1 or 2 things that she was going to look up again because she didn't necessarily agree with the direction that House of Levine had established. And it wasn't anything major. It was just like, it's probably okay, but maybe it could be worded differently. And so signage is a really big deal. The development standards, we had, there's parking and things like that. And so I know, everyone's very sensitive about parking in the downtown. And I feel like I'm left alone on an island thinking that if you build it, they will come and they will walk from wherever they have to walk. But apparently nobody else believes that. So we've had a lot of conversations about maybe setting some different standards within the downtown and trying to get more shared parking agreements, et cetera. And then also deciding what is reasonable for a strip center. Reasonable from, obviously the tenants change on a regular basis. And is it reasonable for staff to go back and recalculate parking every time? I said no. I was like, that's not going to happen. So I don't think that's in there right now. But so if that doesn't happen, then what is reasonable, and can we, so I know there's going to be parking minimums or parking maximums and things like that. And some giving staff the opportunity to do some waiving, a lot of increased landscaping. So that's probably going to be one of the biggest changes that I personally see is how does a lot look? And coming back fresh from Florida, I'm like, you can't, even in the low end of the development world, there's a tree like every 15 feet or 20 feet. in the parking lot and grassy areas between every single set of aisles. So, Jinx is a very affluent city, and I don't know why we shouldn't raise our standards. So that's my 2 cents. You all will see it soon enough, and Eric will see it even sooner.
Well, if you have these islands with trees and grass, got to make sure we have a budget to keep it mowed.
Yeah, right.
Water.
Yes, has to be irrigated. So, it's going really well. It's a little bit, it's not behind schedule, like literally from what they gave us, they thought by the end of summer, and we could still probably get it adopted, but it's a lot of reading and thinking. It's not like you can just read it. You literally have to think about what's it going to look. I have scribbles and drawings like on every page where I'm trying to process through what does this mean once it's applied. So it's good.
Now that sharp, well, the Melody Lane development are going to do, what kind of signage are they going to be allowed at the street?
They ask for a shared monument sign. So it's technically the new development is called Melody Court.
Okay.
And they have a shared entrance, and they have asked for offsite. So it would be a shared monument sign between the two, in addition to the big thing they already have.
What's there? Yeah.
Yeah. So other than that,
Anything else on our agenda coming up?
Brandon, do we have anything next month?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I don't think so.
Well, did Bill slip something in under the radar?
I don't know.
I honestly can't remember at this point.
I don't remember either. I'll let you know, but I don't, as of right now, I don't remember anything being on the July agenda. And I thank you all for serving and for coming. And Eric, thank you so much for reaching out to me and letting me know what you saw. I just couldn't see it. I don't know why. The way I read it the very first time stuck in my head, and I couldn't see anything else. Okay, what did you say? So it's
Okay, Board of Adjustment meeting adjourned at 6:29.